Hey everybody, what's poppin'? Thanks for listening to the Blessed Up Podcast. We really do appreciate it, and we really hope you enjoy this week's episode. Well, TK, here we are again. Episode 3 now?
Yeah, 3.
So, we've not gotten kicked off of YouTube yet, so that's got to be a good thing. So,
yeah,
and is. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we're trying something new.
Yes.
A new look. See if
cactus tablecloth.
This is TK's personal favorite tablecloth, cactus. He likes cactuses for some reason, but
they're just fun.
So we are just coming off of Valentine's Day.
February just ended.
And we did 2 podcasts in February, which is awesome, given all the sickness and things the enemy tried doing to make this not happen. But here we are, and we thought it'd be very fitting to talk about love.
Love is in the air.
Love. So I know it's kind of a broad topic to talk about love, but we got some cool things we want to share with you.
Especially since we've been reading through Matthew throughout the month of February, and just use an example of Jesus' ministry and the love that he shows. Absolutely. But we'll get to that later.
So Valentine's Day, right? As if you're a boyfriend, this is mainly for the men. Okay, you can't slack as a guy on Valentine's Day. Even if the girl is like, I don't want anything, it's a trap. It's a trap. I wanted to share with you, I don't know if I've ever told you this or not, but so my wife, I've been with her for going on 12 years now, so I've spent most of my Valentine's Day with her. But it was, I think, the Valentine's Day before we got married, right? I was still living with my parents up until we got married, and so I had like this whole great setup, right? I mean, I gotta give myself a pat on the back because I kicked my parents out of the house, had her come over, and there was rose petals leading up to a spot where I'd made her dinner. I had made her homemade cookies, which I'm really good at making cookies, okay? A little secret about me you didn't know. Had a thing of those sitting right there for her. Had a nice gift for her. Had one of those giant, annoying singing cards that you can't do anything with after Valentine's Day. Just kind of awkwardly sit in the corner of your room. But I was really doing well, right? And I was making her favorite dinner, which is chicken Alfredo, okay?
Yum, yum, yum.
Now, I was not the
maybe
cook.
Not yum, yum, yum.
You said yum, yum. Well, maybe not so much. I was not quite the cook then that I am now. So the noodles came out okay. That was not the issue. The Alfredo sauce was the consistency. If I had poured a glass of water on it, it was. I don't know what I did wrong to this day. It was like a homemade recipe, and I thought all I have to do is read. Going straight down. Somewhere along the lines, I messed up. So it was like this great Valentine's Day setup. Noodles looked great. Chicken was fine. And then this liquidy, watery, dumpster fire Alfredo sauce. And, my fiance, now wife at the time, was trying to power through it's really good. Really good. Legit, I think we got a pizza. I'm not even kidding. I think we got a pizza, and that was our Valentine's Day. So that was...
Was that the first time you ever cooked for Emily?
Yes, actually. That was one of the first times I'd ever cooked for her. Thankfully, I am much better cook now. Pasta, for some reason, I can make it, but it's not my forte.
It's funny. Me and Miranda have a similar first meal. First time she ever cooked for me. She made something she never had made before, which Miranda does often. She finds stuff on Pinterest.
His wife's quite the cook.
And she always does a great job. But this one particular time, it was some sort of crock pot. I think it was chicken, broccoli and cheese, something in a crock pot. Maybe rice. I can't really remember all of the... but what had happened, though, is she actually overcooked it in the crock pot. So it was pretty mushy. And so this is the first time she ever cooked for me when we first started dating. And I ate it all, and which honestly it wasn't that bad. As far as a bad meal goes, for that to be a bad meal, she She did it. She did it. It was, I've definitely had worse things.
Well, yours is at least edible.
Yeah.
Mine was not edible. It even ruined the noodles. I don't know what I did to this sauce, but it was not Alfredo.
Oh, and I think, if I remember correctly too, Marina also put quite a bit of garlic in it. So garlic, the thing that you want on a day, a good old garlicky bread.
So what TK is saying is him and his fiance did not kiss that night. I'm sure. If so, as a peck.
But so this year for Valentine's Day, did you guys do anything fun?
We kind of kept it simple because it was on a Tuesday, so it's like right in the middle of a work week. But I always do something. Usually, I always have flowers delivered to her school where she works. This year is a little bit different because she switched jobs this summer, and so the flower place I normally use does not deliver out there anymore, and so it was too far away. But I I made her a homemade card. I do that every year. I had some coffee for her. I made her dinner that night, and I did not mess it up. And then my plan was to give her a foot massage because she loves having her feet massaged. But my wife is going towards her master's degree, and so she was working on that, and then she just wanted to go to bed. So it was kind of a lackluster Valentine's Day, but I can say I cooked the meal well this time. It was edible. So what about you guys?
Well, on the actual Valentine's Day itself, I just had some chocolate-covered strawberries and a cupcake delivered to her work. And we didn't really do anything that day, and then just kind of hang at home. But I think I did cook steak that night, if I remember correctly.
Come on.
But that weekend after, we went and saw to Branson, saw Ant-Man and the Wasp. Just had a good little date. So it was a lot of fun. So we had a good Valentine's Day this year.
I'm curious to see whenever you and Miranda decide to have kids. I'm really curious to see what your first Valentine's Day looks like. I think last year our first Valentine's Day with Oak, I literally think we had Emily's mom watch him, and we just sat in the house and I think had a meal and just laid out and chilled.
Well, sometimes you just need those chill days. It's not always about the big extravagant.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, it's about just spending time with your significant other, having a good time.
Absolutely. And it's cool. I've been with, like I said, this is, I guess, it'll be my 12th Valentine's Day, something like that, with my wife. And it's just cool seeing the evolution of our relationship over that time. Because, it's a time to reflect and just be grateful for the relationship you're in. But to look back and just see what all God's done in our relationship from our first Valentine's Day to this one 12 years later, it's cool to see. There's been a continual growth there we both had together. And that's what we're called to do as couples. So I'm sure you can say the same thing about y'all's. And, we might get into that a little bit.
Yes.
Tonight. Yeah, a little preface for what to expect.
Our order may be a little different than normal. We might kind of...
This is the love episode, if you will. So this is going to be a very fun and special podcast, but it's going to be good. So we're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we will get into it. So talk to you in a second. So if we're going to talk about love, I think it's important to know what is love.
Yes.
And what do you think? When I say that, what is the first thing that comes to
your mind?
The song,
What is love?
Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. If you know, you know.
Yeah, how can you not know?
We might be showing our age for our younger listeners.
That song was actually released the year I was born.
Back in 1870. TK is an old soul.
Bad.
But no, I think if we're going to talk about love, in the Bible there is literally so many ways you can go talking about this subject. But I think the most basic thing we can do is break down what is love.
Yes.
And I think 1 John 4:8 pretty much tells us all we need to know about love. And I think it's beautifully said. It says, whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love.
Yes.
What is love? It's God. And we can just wrap it up right here, because that,
yes,
in a nutshell, that's what it is. To understand what it truly means to love, we got to understand that it is God, first and foremost.
You see that all through the gospel.
Yeah.
And like I said referenced earlier, I'm talking about Jesus. You see in his ministry the compassion he has for those. And then even at the end of his life, whenever, his last words are forgive them.
Mm.
And he just has such a compassion for everyone who he's speaking to. And you even see in the Lord how he allows Jesus to come down just for our grace. And you see the grace that he has for the Israelites over the years. And just amazing and to know how that carries over into our life now, and how much the Lord cares about us. He, cares about the things we're going through, and he wants to support us and be there for us. And it's just the comfort that we can receive whenever we realize that, and just have faith to know that even whenever life seems crazy, I know at the end of the day God loves me.
Yeah.
And I can fall back on him.
Well, and I love that. You can fall back on him. And if maybe you're not a believer and you're listening to TK talk about like this love that God has for us, well, what does that look like? How does God love me? And let me go find, I want to read it. Well, I know it off heart. John 3:16, probably the staple of the Christian faith. And when you hear you talking about love.
By the way, I like how you went to go find John and you started turning the Bible the opposite way because he was in John already.
I was in 1 John.
Oh, 1 John. Okay. So sorry. I thought he was in regular John. You started turning. Never mind. Okay. Sorry.
This guy, always looking for something to make fun of me with.
Yeah.
Keeping me honest. But John 3:16, arguably the staple verse of the Christian faith, I think, gives you an idea. What does it look like for God to love me? It says, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. Eternity with him. Like that's powerful. What is God loved us so much he gave.
Yes.
He gave. So what does it look like for us to love? It's to give away what's overflowing within our own hearts that God's given us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think unless we understand that in full, we can't love others to the fullness that we can and should, in my opinion. And I'm a parent. I'm a parent. My son is 1.5. That verse hit home with me in a whole different way after I had my son Emmett. Because when I read that and I think God so loved us, he loved you, he loved me, he loved you so much that he sent his son to die for our sins. That's not a penalty. That's not a sacrifice I could make. I couldn't. When I look at my son, there's just so much love there that I would say, take me instead. But God loved us so much. He's like, no, I'm going to send my son to bear the punishment for your sins and everyone else to make a way for you to have eternity with me. That's love. That is some of the most incredible, powerful, impactful, life-changing love you can experience. And it's also a formula, TK, would you not say, for like how we should love?
Yes.
God loves us, so give. Love others. Love everyone you come in contact with. And in that, I think it makes us better husbands.
Yeah.
Makes
us better husbands and better people.
Absolutely.
Because this world is just looking for people to love them.
Everyone, the human heart literally was designed to be loved. And if God is love and God created us, of course the human heart is going to be hungry for that love naturally. But if you notice, a lot of people will look for love in the wrong places.
Yes.
And they will go and they'll look for these alternatives to fill their heart, and it's only a void that God can fill. That emptiness that some people feel, it's only a spot that God can fill.
Most of the time, the void that people try to put there, that is sin, whether it be, we could give you a list long, but at the end of the day, like Zach said, the only thing that's going to fill that is God's love.
Absolutely.
And like I said earlier too, along with that love comes peace, joy, happiness,
hope, belonging. I mean, the list, like you said, goes on. I think this is true in my own life. I can relate because I was not always serving Christ. And I remember specifically in high school and early on in college, I was looking for love in all the wrong places because the human heart desires to be loved. Whether people want to admit that out loud or not, it's only natural. We desire love. And so if you notice, people will be seeking approval from their parents, or they'll go seeking approval from different things to feel that love. But for me, I was looking for love in the world, like going after the wrong women. I was going after the partying lifestyle, doing drugs, doing all these different things, trying to fill a void that could only be filled by a living God. And I can say that confidently because the moment that I had an encounter with Jesus, it's like that void in my heart that had been empty for so long was full for the first time. And maybe you can touch on this because I know you grew up in the church, but when did you feel like, I don't know, that your faith became your own and like you felt that void just permanently close up in your heart and you felt that love of God come?
It's very similar because even though I grew up in church, even when you grow up in church, there comes a time from, you have to make the decision, you're not just going to church because, your parents or grandparents are dragging you by the ear or whatever, Yeah, there comes the moment where you have to make a decision to come for, because you want to grow with God.
Yeah.
I remember that happened to me when I was in high school. I started coming to youth and just God really just started touching my life. And I do remember, like, there was things, not that I ever, like, just did horrible, like, things, and I was just, like, living a super sinful life, like, you hear a lot of people's testimonies being, but there was things God led me to stop watching on TV, or, I just found myself almost more mature, if that makes sense. Because certain like movies and shows I used to watch, just, I just don't want to watch that. And I just kind of found myself moving those things out. But as I did that, my character grew.
That's good.
And
yeah, I like that.
So it is amazing. And, there's kind of that moment where even if you grew up in church, you do have to make that decision. This is my walk with God, not my parents, not. And then as you do that, you really, God will work on and choosing things, and you begin to know what love feels like, so you can even show love. And for me, I was super shy in high school. And one thing for me that God helped me with is getting out of my comfort zone so I could be more kind, be more loving to others, and be more social to be able to show love.
That's good.
And if I wouldn't have ever had that experience with God, I'd probably still be just a shy guy, just living life and keeping to myself all the time. And I'm thankful that God brought me out of that and showed me the greatness of love and the amazing friendships that have been based out of God's love that He's provided for me since then. I truly can't say enough how thankful I am for that.
That's so good. And there are different types of love, and you can experience love outside of Christ, if you will, but not in full. Not in full. Agape love, it's unfailing love. That means there's nothing you or I could do that can outrun that love. It's perfect love, and that's why it's God. God is perfect love. And it's like you can have like your water bottle full or your canteen full of water, but when you experience agape love of Christ, it's like you're not just having a canteen of water, you're next to a well that never runs dry, if that makes sense. And you hit on something I thought was interesting. Because people, when you experience the love of God in full, it changed what you watched, it changed some of the things you'd say and what you did. And I don't know, I thought this is an interesting point to maybe talk tonight on, TK, because I think people look at Christianity sometimes and they think, well, it's just this long laundry list of rules that you got to follow. Can't do this, can't do that, and that's not it. And this is why you got to experience love in full to understand it. Instead, I see it as, use this illustration. I love my wife, okay? And because I love my wife, I'm not going to do things that's going to harm that relationship. I'm not going to go hang out with another woman. I'm not going to go out and stay away from her for a long time and put our family in jeopardy. I'm not going to run to different avenues looking for fulfillment when I have my wife, who I love, who loves me, right there. I'm not going to do it because I value my relationship with my wife, and I'm going to hold it next to Christ. It is the most important relationship in my life, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that's growing and standing strong. And because of that, yes, I will cut things out of my life if it's going to grow that relationship. Mm-hmm. And it's the same and then some with Christ. Yes, that quote-unquote list of things we can't do, that's not that. It's like a love letter, in my opinion, because it's saying, if you want to grow in fullness of this in this relationship with me, cut these things out of your life. Do this, because then you can have more of me. And it's like that illustration I just used. Instead of having your canteen full of water, when you lay these things down and you're seeking God, it's like you're next to that living well that never runs dry.
And, you just, speaking of that list, like, you're using the 10 Commandments as an example. Whenever you read through the 10 Commandments, and, it's 10 lists of things that we shouldn't do. But number one, all those commandments are kind of based around love, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Number one, we have to, love on, the Lord and, and show respect to Him. But outside of that also, it's, like, for example, honor your father and mother.
Yes. Don't
rob, don't steal, don't murder. Like, these are all, rob, don't steal.
I knew what you meant.
But, like, all these things, though, like, if you're a loving person, you're not gonna want to do these things and to harm another person.
Yeah.
Like, as you follow the different commandments and guidelines God has, like, I think a lot of them are just to overall just make you a better person, so you can love people better.
Yeah.
And that's what God calls us to do, is love Christ and to love others at the end of the day.
I mean, well, I think that sums up a verse I wanted to read tonight. It's a verse that, again, I think hits home and how we should love. These are the words of Jesus in the Gospel of Mark, and this is Mark 12, verses 30 through 31. I think you segued perfectly into it. It says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. The second is love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than this." Talked about the 10 commandments. Jesus, when he gets on the scene, says, look, I'm going to break it down for you. Love God, love people.
Mm-hmm. And if you do both of those things, all of those other commandments are going to follow under that.
Stole my I was going to say, but it's so true. Like, if you're doing those things, everything else naturally falls into place. I've said this on here before, and I've preached this many times, but if your relationship with Jesus is first and foremost, and you're investing in that every day, every other relationship is going to naturally fall into place as it should. But you've got to put Him first. And I think this is the perfect formula, and it does tie in with John 3:16. Because it says, love God, love people. Okay, God so loved the world, He did what? He gave. So let the overflow that you experience when you allow the love of God into your heart to overpour and overflow into someone else's life. And there's something to think about here, is not everyone in the human mindset, well, they're mean to me, or they've done X, Y, Z to me, they don't deserve to be loved. How many times have you heard that? Like, oh, they're a bad person, they do this on the weekends, or, they're just mean all the time, they've done this, or they've never been good to me. That's true, but the people we say aren't worthy of love, it really gives you an eye-opening thought of that's the way Jesus went in and made an impact for us to be loved by Him. Because, go ahead. I
was just going to say, you look at the people who Jesus ministered to.
Come on.
He didn't go around the people who were like in the churches and speak at the tabernacles all the time. He was out in the real world with people every day, whether they were sinners or he was ministering to the people who needed Him and showing that love and being there for the people who needed it, no matter who they were.
No matter who they were. And a lot of the people, if you read the scriptures, they were outcast by society. the lepers, the people that were being healed. You had the woman at the well. Like all these people that Jesus, the big stories in the Gospels we read about, were outcasts in society. But they were ones that Jesus knew was worthy of love, despite what other people said about them.
Yeah.
You want to know how you stand out in the way we love? It's by loving the unlovable. Because when we love the unlovable, we get a glimpse of what Jesus did for us. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a
Because at the end of the
great
day,
example.
we all fall short every day. And despite all of us falling short, like Zach said, God still has that grace for us, just as He has the same grace for everyone else out there.
Yeah.
And we just as like Zach said, as we can love on others, it's a great remembrance of, as we do that, of how much God loves us and is showing us grace.
And I'm just full of verses tonight. Like the Bible is chock full of love. Like we could have gone so many different directions with talking about this tonight. But another beautiful passage of scripture, and I want to read it in full tonight, and then maybe just kind of get your thoughts on something I want to say after this. But this is the love chapter, and several of you probably heard of it. It's in 1 Corinthians 13. But I just want to read this, and then I want to share something with you and how, because I think the question can be asked, we're talking about love, how much God loves us, how that should affect us. But I think the natural question we can ask after that is, okay, well, how do I go about getting started in loving people? Like, first off, before I even read this passage, it's accepting Jesus Christ into your life. Because if you're going to know love, you got to invite love to come and live within your heart first and foremost. That is the source of this. So if you don't have Jesus, you cannot experience this in full, period. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, the life. Not a way or a truth. No, He's the way, the truth, the life. So the only way to experience love in full is to let Him into your heart, because once again, God is love. So with that, I want to read this. I want to say something, and then I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Okay? 1 Corinthians 13, starting in verse 4. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. This is my favorite part of it. Love never fails. God is love. He can't fail. So what does that look like? How do I get started loving like this? If I've welcomed Jesus into my heart, how do I start doing this? Well, this is what I wanted to challenge you guys with. How do I go about doing this? Instead of where it says love in this chapter, which is verse 4 through 8. So where it says love, put your name in there instead. And ask yourself, am I doing these things? Because this is how we love. So Zach is patient. We're off to a bad start. Zach is kind. Zach does not envy. Zach does not boast. Zach is not proud. Zach does not dishonor others. Zach is not self-seeking. Zach is not easily angered. Zach keeps no records of wrongs. Zach does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. Zach always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And just reading that alone, I can tell you several things I could work on.
Oh yeah,
because
me too.
Patience, I think I'm part of the human race. I think we all struggle with that. But give me your thoughts on that. I don't know if you've ever heard it put that way before, but like, how do I get started loving? Okay, put your name where love is, because we're called to represent love on this side of eternity. And if I'm struggling in these areas, those are some focus areas we could work on. I'd love your thoughts on that.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. I have heard that put into that perspective before, and I think there's often times that I actually come to that, when I come to that passage, I will put my name in that, like that, and it is a good reminder, because as you do that, it is a good check as you're reading that. Yeah. And, sometimes we just need to be checked.
Yeah.
And I think it's always important, to know the things that we could be better at, so we can be better to others. because there's always stuff we can work on.
Absolutely.
And, we're not going to be perfect. The one thing that we can't be, is at the end of Love Never Fails.
We're
gonna fail.
Yeah,
that's the one we can't.
Don't even put your name in verse 8 because there's only one person who walked this earth that's not going to fail, and it's not either of us. Yeah. It's Jesus.
But yeah, that is a great thing from time to time to just go back. If you ever need to check yourself, just read that chapter and put your name there, and the Lord will speak to you real fast on something that I probably need to be better at, being more patient and not not spouting off something out of impatience that I should have kept to myself.
And I think you said something I like there. We're never going to be perfect in this. I think even if we're a believer all our lives, we could still come to this every day, no matter if the Lord tarries and we're here 100 years. I guarantee we could always find something in that small passage of Scripture that we could always be working on. But that's part of it. I think that's part of it because we can never put our name in verse 8, Zach never fails, because I'm always going to fail. And I think no matter how long we're on this side of eternity, we're always going to. But as long as we're seeking the one who never does fail, we're going to be able to experience love more in full. We're going to be able to give love in ways that few probably are able to give. And I think that's why agape love that comes straight from the Father stands out. The Bible says that Jesus said to us, they will know you are followers of me by the way you love. And that's to be a gut check to every believer. Because if people can't look at me and say, oh, I know he loves Jesus because of the way he loves others, there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
There's something wrong there. So are we loving people in a way that not only honors the Father, but honors other people? What was the thing we talked about? Love God, love people. John 3:16, God so loved the world he gave. Are we giving that love away that is overflowing in our hearts? Like, it all ties together. But the most important thing we can understand is God is love. And if we receive that love, I think everything's going to naturally flow out of us in response to that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we could talk, but this could probably be a series, to be honest with you. I think this is good stuff. But anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and then we have a special something for you guys in the next part of this week's podcast. So we'll be right back. So, in the spirit of Valentine's Day, we thought we'd do something a little bit different, a little bit special.
And I'm very excited about this.
I am too. This is TK's idea, so I give him kudos for this. But, obviously talking about God's love, when we receive that into our lives, it affects how we love others. And I think talking about our wives, the most important people in our lives, I think we should do that tonight. And so I thought it was your idea to share how we met our wives in case, and you guys get to know us a little bit this way.
Yes.
So it's kind of a cool story, actually. So we kind of, anyway, I'll go first. So as y'all know, the night I met my wife, TK thought I was a tool. If you go watch episode 1 of our Bless Up podcast, he talks a little bit about this. But honestly, I'd been saved for a very short time. I got out of a very toxic relationship, and honestly, I was a very new believer. But one thing I can say is I was hungry for God. I basically, at this point, I had lost all my friends that I once used to party with and do things with, and it was just me and God, and I was actually okay with that. And the only, one of the few friends I had probably 3 or 4 friends I could count on, and one of them was my buddy Chris, who's actually the one that led me to the Lord. And I remember it was actually the week before he invited me, I prayed to God. I said, God, I do not want to be in a relationship again unless it's going to be with my future wife. And I don't know what that looks like, but I pray that is the case. I'm content with just being with you and you alone until that happens. And so that was the week before Chris invited me to a young adults hangout that night at the leader's house. So went there. I ended up meeting my wife, and it sounds cheesy. It sounds cliche. And I know it's not like this for everybody. But for someone who's lived in the dark for so long, when Emily walked in, it was just like you see in the movies, the light around her, the wind was just perfectly blowing in her hair. But no, I literally, she was to me glowing. And I tell people, like, it is the closest you can get to love at first sight. Because I was just like, I don't know who this girl is, but I need to meet her. And of course, my persistent flirting with this girl that night, it was as if it was just Emily and I in that room that night, led to you thinking I was an absolute tool, which is hilarious. But what was really cool, TK, is, the next night Emily and I hung out and we just got to know each other. Like, that was really, we just talked. But I would come to find out that next night, that before she had come to that outing and met me, she had prayed the exact same prayer to God. You will never be able to convince me that our relationship is not a God thing, because two people don't just pray a relationship or pray a prayer like that and something not come of it.
Exactly.
And the fact we prayed that within a week span and met each other, that's a God thing. And from then on, she's been my partner in crime for the last 12 years. We've been youth pastors together. We've done several outings together. We're now parents. Like, that's my best friend. I'm sorry. I love you. You're a solid number 3.
This is when your wife just hearted the video.
Yeah, this is where Emily would be like, you said the right thing. You're not in trouble. But no, honestly, it's Jesus and then my wife. Like, I adore everything about her. And so the way we met is definitely a God thing and very, very special. And, I'm very pleased to say, as you prepare to tell your story, that she is best friends with your wife. So your wife is a solid number 3 in your wife's life, or my wife's life too, because it's, for me, it's, Jesus, Emily, but then there you are. So anyway, share the people your love story.
So, me and Miranda, it's actually kind of funny. Trying to think where I want to start.
Yours is an interesting one. So, like, where do you start?
So, the first time me and Miranda met, I actually don't remember meeting her.
Which is hilarious.
So Zach said, he was youth pastoring in Huntsville at the time, and I think it was around his birthday in September, and he was speaking in the main service. So me and our friend Ethan and his wife, I think they actually might have been dating at the time. Wanted to surprise Zach and go listen to him speak. Well, while I was speaking there, I was introduced to Miranda, apparently.
She was one of my youth leaders at the time.
Well, no, she wasn't your youth leader.
Oh, that was a few months later. That's right.
So, she was friends with Casey. So Casey introduced us together, mutual friends. And I don't remember it at all. But I've even tried to, I have no memory at all.
Memory of a duck.
Yes. So I remember, I guess apparently Miranda said, "Oh, he's cute," or something like that. And I guess Casey told Zach, and then Zach told me. At the time, I remember looking her up. And it shows, I guess, probably bad on me. But I remember seeing her, she had a picture, I believe, with her nephew. I remember thinking, oh, she has a kid. I don't know if I really wanted to date someone with a kid. That was like literally my thought process at the time. So I didn't really think much of it. I just kind of moved on because after I creeped her on Facebook.
Really gave it a chance.
And just kind of moved on, and then later that following year, at the beginning of the year, is whenever she started helping in Zach's youth.
She became one of my youth leaders.
And so there was a couple times since then that I got to kind of meet her. We didn't really get to know each other very well, but I remember meeting her a couple of times, and I actually spoke one time whenever he was pastoring in the youth. But once again, never did really act on anything. I remembered her from being the person who Zach had told me in the past that she, kind of liked me or something, but I didn't really think much about it. Well, that summer comes and I kind of just decided, at this point in my life, I think I was 26, 25 or 26, getting kind of later into my 20s. It's just kind of like, whenever you're that old into your 20s and like all of your other friends are married, like close to getting married, and you're just kind of like, well, sometimes you just like, you kind of get to wondering, well, am I ever even going to meet that person?
You can be like the Apostle Paul, who said, I'm not going to get married.
Yeah, I'm not going to get married. But then one day the Lord really spoke to me, and I thought, I really just need to kind of focus on myself, and not really think about, who I'm going to be with, and just kind of focus on myself. And it was amazing. As I began to focus on myself, that's whenever camp kind of came, youth camp, and
we had conjoined youth camps.
Yes.
So his youth group that he was a leader at, we went to camp. Our group that I was youth pastoring at went to youth camp with them, and that's so we were at the same camp.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so I ran into Miranda a few times at that camp, and at that time, I guess Miranda still, had some feelings for me, and I guess she finally told Emily, I think was one of the girls that she told, and they really tried to, and they said, you need to talk to him. And they tried to get her to talk to me, and so we talked. There's a couple of interactions we had, little funny ones, but after camp, Zach reached out to me and said, hey, Miranda likes you. How would you like to go on a double date? And
on her birthday, ironically, was the
so
date.
On her birthday in June, we went on a double date, and then we started kind of talking, and in August we made it official. But I tell you, I just thought it was amazing though that it took me like deciding to work on myself before God was like, no, you need to work on yourself and then you'll be ready.
In a sense, you prayed almost a similar version of the same prayer Emily and I both prayed, and that's when the Lord opened up the door for you too.
And it was just kind of beautiful how everything kind of came together. And then I would never forget whenever I knew Miranda was the one that I was going to marry on Labor Day. So we'd only been dating a couple of weeks at that point because we made it official. I mean, in August. And so it was only actually official, like for a couple of weeks, and then so we went on a date on Labor Day, and that evening we just kind of unleashed everything. We told each other our deepest, darkest secrets, the things that we've never had told anybody else, and just was real with one another. And in that realness, I grew to realize, I love this. I can be myself. We know everything about each other. We still love each other. This is the real deal. After all of this that I've poured out to her and said to her, she still loves me. And it was just a beautiful thing. And from then on, we just, prioritized our relationship and just being real. And it's been amazing how God has blessed us, and He's allowed us everything to perfectly work together. Whenever me and her got married, and I was gonna have to move over there for a job. I wasn't even looking for a job yet, and one of the ladies that was at Miranda's church got to thinking they were looking for someone in Huntsville at the clerk's office. And she was like, well, you know what? Miranda is such a sweet girl. She's getting married. They're moving here. He's going to have a job. And if Miranda is as sweet as she is, the person she's marrying has to be a pretty good guy. So she randomly reached out to Miranda, and within a week, I have a job. I just kind of out of seemingly nowhere. It's just been amazing how time and time again, God has just blessed us so lovingly, and I just can't express enough just how thankful I am for that, and how thankful I am that Miranda like kind of fell into my lap, and just a cool story of how sometimes it just takes on trusting in the Lord and working on yourself, and then boom.
Well, I love what you said, work on yourself, and I think people hear that, just worry about me. No. That's not what you meant by worry about your work on you. It was allowing God to work on you.
Yes. And when I say work on myself, I really mean working on my relationship with the Lord.
Yeah, and again,
so that I could be a better
friend,
person.
And when that
so I could love.
Yeah.
And learn how to love.
Every other relationship fell into place.
Yeah.
And I think as we begin to wind down on this episode, I think something that's been an additional blessing to both of us. We have separate relationships, but in a way they're tied together, because had I not gone to youth pastor at Huntsville, who's to know if you would have met your wife?
Yeah.
And if I hadn't come to that event that night, I may have not met mine. And who knows what would have happened. But what I think is cool about this, TK, is you and I have been best friends for a long time. And I think it is the biggest blessing in the world that God has allowed our wives to be best friends too. We've gone on lots of double dates. We've had lots of hangouts at our houses. Like, we're doing life together. And it's just, to me, that's like the kindness of God. Like, you were faithful in the little things individually, and you're also faithful in your relationships. Now, enjoy this gift of friendship and enjoying it in full,
Another thing, too, another lesson in my story is, I don't always be so quick to, flee from, like I said, the first time Miranda was mentioned to me.
Don't judge a Facebook by its cover.
I was like, no.
That's good. Don't judge a Facebook by its cover.
Yeah, but truly, But I mean, of course, at the time, like, I was not ready I would have not been ready at that moment anyway. So it is amazing, even, the timing ended up working out perfectly, because by the time, me and Miranda did date, I was ready. But, that just goes to show you my growth just in that year span, but
these relationships will last. They will stand the test of time, because they are built on the foundation of Jesus. Mm-hmm. They're not built on a foundation of what Zach wants or what Emily wants, or in your guys' case, what TK wants and Miranda wants. It's built on the foundation of Christ, and when any storm comes to try and shake that, it won't.
Yeah.
And so I know for a fact that my relationship with my wife is a permanent one. Mm-hmm. And I've learned the relationships that are the most secure and the most strong are the ones that were rooted on the foundation of Christ. And so, it's because of our relationship with Christ that we're able to be loving husbands, and they're able to be loving wives. And it doesn't mean it's perfect. It's not, because we're never going to be. We talked about this. We're going to fail. But as long as we're seeking the one that never does, there's a lot of grace and a lot of things we realize. So, I don't know. There's more we could probably share on our stories. We probably need to consider doing an overtime segment, TK. But, in the spirit of love, we thought we'd do something a little bit different this episode. But as we're winding down, guys, we have some pretty cool things we want to do in the future. I mentioned we have a potential sponsor already, which is exciting, as well as we have a few special episodes we want to do, and moving forward some special guests. So, be keeping up with us and what we're doing, and So to end this segment, TK, I'll just simply ask you: do you love me more than Miranda?
No, I'm sorry.
That's fair.
Miranda has my heart.
That's fair.
Your little heart.
Number 3, maybe. Or number 4, actually. Nana's up there. Anyway.
Yeah, Nana's definitely up there.
We love you guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Bless up. See y'all next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bless Up podcast. Please like and comment on the video and subscribe to the page so you don't miss out on the exciting things God is doing, as well as upcoming projects in store. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you, and God bless. Bye-bye.